the progress that has been made and on whose shoulders it has been. Who is it? Patients, right? The stories, the doctors, the children.
Well, the whole patient support industry that you're talking about there, too, including the early distribution centers who went at great risk, introduced a lot of patients to life-saving medicines that they never would have had access to without those centers.
The stories, the news stories, think of a time that, oh, that's good press. Our movement, boom, we moved up. We took a bishop, you know what I mean, on the board, right? Tell me a memory that you have about a caregiver. There's never been a good story written ever about a caregiver, ever.
Oh, well.
It's all arrested and overage shit.
Except for Michigan Medical Marijuana Magazine from 2009.
Right, but you're biased, and you're on our team. I'm just kidding. Okay. I mean, you're not.
We featured a lot of good stories about caregivers.
Mm-hmm. No, there's been an attack on the caregivers from the beginning.
No, but do you see what I'm saying? If you look at,
except for by Rick,
from the medical marijuana community, the patients, they're the real deal. But to suggest that the caregivers haven't been, the only answer for how they can proclaim that cannabis works for them, how this oil works for them, how this strain works for them, it didn't come from big. Listen, I know this is blasphemy, and we have many business patients and whatnot, but and I want to make the case for even to those people that are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, that letting the caregivers into the system is a good thing. I'm going to make that case in a second.
Okay? A good thing.
Let me just say this, though. There's been no industrial cultivation in Michigan for 9 years. None. So that means all the progress we've made, all the medicines we've done, all the people's lives we saved, that was all accomplished by caregivers.
Not to mention they've been supporting the sick all these years, put their neck on the line. Yeah, cut them off. Don't let them part of the system. Force them underground. Don't let those that want to come in have some access. I mean, I would say, believe me, whatever. I mean, I'm not under oath, but I have no reason to, for whatever it's worth, people don't come into my office and say, teach me how to get around the MMA. They want to know, I want to do everything right. I want to get a company, there's no path. There wasn't one for MMA caregivers to engage in business, unfortunately, but it's not as if there were some rules, people wouldn't have signed right up and been inspected. People would have loved to have been inspected. Tell me how to do it right. Let me tell my
if they could be part of a commercial. Right,
yeah, right. And so, right. Well, it's weird because, as we know, in certain parts of the state, it is common knowledge that a way to make some money is become a caregiver, get some more.
I just want to add to this conversation from what you said before. Just because there are a lot of good caregivers out there, and some people who are pro-cannabis might say, hey, why don't you just get a caregiver? I mean, it doesn't quite work like that.
Want to talk about that for a minute?
For everybody. Well, I just want to make sure you brought that up before, and then we're talking about how good the caregiver is. And I agree with that.
I support,
but there's not an immediate transition for those people who've been used to going to stores to finding a caregiver that supplies them and has what they need immediately.
I have an excellent caregiver, and I still visit dispensaries.
Well, the point is this, that in the world of people that might listen to this show, dare I say, or people that interact with anyone in this room, they know people who are caregivers, right? It's all right.
Esteban!
Pooh Bear.
What's going on, man?
The caregiver.
All right, finally made it.
The black market.
The giver of care.
Whew.
Esteban's contraband.
That's exclusive to one family only.
That's right. To get a seat, come and plug in a microphone. We want to do some songs and stuff. Okay. All right. So what we're saying, so the scenario, and
I think we're going to.
So not everybody knows it. What, you want to take a break? Let me finish my thought.
All right, it sounded like a solid break point.
All right, Josh. Fuck you. I'm so sick of you.
I guess Michael and I were the only ones interested in this conversation, apparently.
No, caregivers definitely need to use a distribution centers. There's a valid reason for them. The caregiver system exists
that idea
in
is
parallel.
great.
Remember that at one point there was 500 dispensaries in the state, while we were still rocking 40,000 caregivers. And guess what? Everybody was happy, right? There's enough market for all.
But Michael was I think, making the point about the caregivers and how they could be an option for some people now, and even some people on our own.
We'd like to see people
in our own community, are suggesting that some people could just make the easy transition from being cut off from a store to just using a caregiver.
There's someone in the world right now who has a relative that's sick, okay, and they're learning of a diagnosis, and they may not know where to go. They may not know someone that's supposed to be part of the state where there's not, it's blasphemy to even talk about them, think about them. They really want to try it, the community that they live in doesn't lend themselves. That may or may not be true. Maybe they know someone they know someone to talk to this kid, but it's not easy. There's a lot of public scrutiny. And where do you get started? How are you going to do that? Are you going to start growing marijuana plants?
The office, right?
You know, I mean, now, I just always thought, like, even for that person that wants to take that task on, how long is it? And if you're going to do that, actually be required to give someone cannabis that can rely on you to get it, you're probably going to want someone looking over your shoulder the first couple times, say, is it okay if I give them this?
And you were probably doing that prior to the shutdown. If you had an inclination to grow plants, you were probably already doing it, right? Because the shutdown didn't make it any more accessible in your living condition. It didn't make it any more acceptable to your employer or your spouse. So the shutdown comes at a time when everybody who wants to grow probably has been. And I doubt that there's very few people that would get.
Well, but there are people that are kind of industrious. They may be green thumbs. The people that they watch.
But then you're saying even if they are kind of like compelled to want to do it for themselves, it's going to be a while before anything that can be used comes around.
4 months to grow a plant plus learning curve. Of course, for sure.
And some people are more sensitive than that, require certain things. You can't just create it.
That's why with medicine you can't just have an abrupt stop. You have to
have a stop.
You have to have a continuous, uninterrupted supply, which is a phrase that's
it's in the Section 8. And the point is, and I emphasize this, it's an amount of marijuana reasonably necessary to keep an uninterrupted supply to treat the patient's seriously debilitating condition, which to me means once you begin on a path and a commitment to take a medication, the worst thing that can happen is you get cut off, right? If that's the desired path. Exactly. If it's not working, that's one thing. But if it's working, you're doing it, you're cut off. That is, and so it accepts and gives an extra special exception under that principle to a quantity that would be necessary to do that in Section 8. I don't know. It's a good part of the law. Well, and I think the most sympathetic that exists. It's really a compassionate aspect of the MMA.
And that really seems to create an individual mandate for that. But I think the spirit and intent of the law is that the licensing and regulatory affairs of the Department of Community Health would have carried on that ideal forward, even though it was an individual mandate. That would be the mandate of the department too.
And with that,
sounds like time for a break.
It's time for a break.
Breakenstein.
Struck Romeo, sing the streets a serenade, laying everybody low with a love song that he made. Find the streetlight, steps out of the shade, says something like, "You and me, babe, how about it?" Juliet says, "Hey, it's Romeo, he nearly gave me a heart attack." He's underneath the window, she's singing, "Eli, my boyfriend's back. You shouldn't come around here singing up at people like that. Anyway, what you gonna do about it?" Juliet, the dice was loaded from the start, and I bet then you exploded into my heart, and I forget the movie song. When you're gonna realize it was just that the time was wrong, Juliet. Come up on different streets, they both were streets of shame. Both dirty, both mean, yes, and the dream was just the same. And I dreamed your dream for you, and now your dream is real. How can you look at me as if I was just another one of your deals? When you can fall for chains of silver, you can fall for chains of gold, you can fall for pretty strangers, and the promises they hold. You promised me everything, you promised me thick and thin, yeah. Now you just say, "Oh, Romeo, yeah, you know, I used to have a scene with him." Juliet, when we made love, you used to cry, said, "I love you like the stars above, I love you till I die. There's a place for us." You know the movie song. can't do the talks like the talk on the TV. And I can't do a love song like the way it's meant to be. I can't do everything, but I'll do anything for you. I can't do anything except be in love with you. And all I do is miss you and the way we used to be. All I do is keep the beat, the bad company. And all I do is kiss you through the bars of a rhyme. Julie, I do the stars with you anytime. Now, Juliet, when we made love, you used to cry. You said, I love you like the stars above. I love you till I die. There's a place for us. You know the movie song. When you gonna realize it was just that the time was wrong, Juliet. In a love-struck Romeo, he sang the streets a serenade, laying everybody low with a love song that he made. Find the convenient street light, steps out of the shade and says something like, you and me, babe, how about it? Sing about the switchback and a torture tattoo. And I've been writing